is the University of Michigan.
Touchdown, Michigan!
And midcourt, extra pass.
And it goes for the win! The three-pointer by Jordan Poole!
Down the sideline! Peoples-Jones! Touchdown, Wolverine!
Welcome to Blue by 90, your Michigan Wolverines podcast. We are three dudes who talk maize and blue. I'm Kalen, joined by Jack, Rowe, and today our special guest from 247sports, Zach Shaw.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining.
Little Raptors baseball reunion.
Yes,
Oh,
the
throwback.
Raptors. Oh my God, I forgot about that until you just said it.
Shout out to Coach Brock, who ended up being my JV baseball coach too. So when I was 10, I was like, "I'll never see him again. Never see him again." He was kind of rough. That was his shtick. He would yell at 8-year-olds like they were adults, and then like, "Oh, I'll never see him again." Saw him again in high school, and then he goes to some of the basketball press conferences, and I'm like, "What the? Can't get rid of this guy."
From now,
But love the work he did. He helped us grow, I think.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
definitely taught us how to be yelled at and take it like an 8-year-old should.
Nice life skill.
Made us all into the players we are today.
For people out there that don't know, so Jack, Kalen, and Zach all went to middle school together in Ann Arbor. I'm the lone wolf over here, but they've got all the memories. So I might just stand back and let you guys, just talk it out today.
Yeah, Zach, so thanks for coming on. And
Absolutely.
you're still in Ann Arbor, right?
Yep. About a mile from the stadium, which for a long time, longtime followers know I lived on Hoover and Division for a long time, but moved out on the stadium or off the stadium, kind of near the bowling alley. So life is good. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes Michigan fans, they can have their annoying moments and be living in Michigan with annoying moments more in the December to February variety, but it's close to family, close to friends. Covering a team I know probably too much about at this point. You talk about those 10,000 hours, you become a master. So we're well past that. But no, it's a lot of fun, and glad to see you guys are getting into the game a little bit too.
Yeah, trying, man. Not quite to your level yet. We got a long ways to go, but we're doing our best. That's for sure.
Keep letting us drink beers on the podcast. You'll get the guests lining up pretty soon.
Oh yeah.
Ski Patrol is a great beer as well. Love Ski Patrol over there.
Shout out to my roommate who moved out 3 days ago, and in the move he left a few of those behind. So we're enjoying
There
it.
you go.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a
To
good way to
Zach's
leave.
roommate. Yeah,
Wait,
so,
are you saying Michigan fans can be insufferable at sometimes?
I said annoying.
No chance. No way.
Well, you know what? I've gotten a lot better with it, because I think when I was like 22, 23, kind of first time dealing with radio callers, dealing with the message boards, it was kind of like, guys, what are we doing here? But then you realize, and I've talked to other colleagues, and it's I mean, first of all, I sympathize, and maybe it's a discussion that we'll touch on later on in the show. I mean, Michigan fans have been through, you compare it to other, like, quote unquote, good football programs, they've been through the ringer, in terms of droughts against rivals and droughts with conference titles. I mean, every school seems like they get lucky one year at least. Like an Auburn just kind of sneaks in and beats Alabama or whatever. Michigan, it's crazy. The last quarterback of a team that finished in the top 5 for Michigan was Tom Brady. As wild as that is, I mean, Missouri snuck into the top 5 one year. So it's I sympathize with it. And here's the real thing is the frustration or the insufferability. Your word, not mine. The annoyingness. It comes from passion, and I think that's one thing that I really, I'm not a fan. I'm an objective reporter, but I do acknowledge and respect the heck out of Michigan for how much its fans care and how much support they show, not just for the big rivalry games, but they fill up the stadium. Well, maybe not this year, but every other year they fill up the stadium. They fill it up for softball. They fill it up for basketball. So I say annoying, but I say it with a little bit of a smile because it's part of the fun. It's the back and forth. That's what these podcasts, and that's what different stories and the interactions. I mean, it'd be pretty boring if I had an opinion and everyone was like, okay, cool. It's not that fun. The back and forth is part of the enjoyment.
Very true.
And I say insufferable because I've been that guy before, and I think we all have at some point, right? It's impossible not to, like you said, with how the last 20 years have went, 15 years have went. It's just been, it hasn't been pretty at very many moments. So, yeah.
Yeah. And in some non-Michigan related news that I just want to touch on before we move on, some sports are starting to come back, right? NBA, I think they just got started with their I don't even know what to call it. Pre-season, pre-playoff.
Pre-season, maybe?
Yeah, there you go.
It's called Duncan Robinson lighting it up. That's what it is.
Dude, and then Karis LeVert is just carrying the Nets over there. I think they lost by 20, but I think he might have had a good game.
MLB's coming back, right? I think this weekend or tonight?
Yeah. The Yankees Nats. They decided their playoff format 3 hours before the season started. So what could be better?
Wasn't the deadline was we have to get this done before first pitch, and they waited about right up to first pitch.
Oh man,
everything is going very well for sports right now. Very organized. Everyone knows what's going on.
Good work.
And Zach and Kalen, Ro and I talked about it a little bit. Did you guys see Fauci's first pitch? His ceremonial first pitch? Oh man, it might have been worse. It might take the cake for the worst first pitch ever. It's right up there with 50 Cent.
I was going to ask, 50 Cent. Was it Mariah Carey?
It was really bad.
Wait, what was so bad about it?
Well, just look it
in
up
the left dugout.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was not.
How?
Good. It looks like he'd never touched a baseball in his life.
Dude, this guy sounds like he needs Coach Brock.
Dude, he does need. I just remember him, Coach Brock, yelling at Gordon Porter almost every day. Those are my flashback memories.
The best thing I saw about Fauci's pitch was that it was a socially distant first pitch.
Okay. Yeah. See, and setting the standard.
On par.
I hope he says he did that on purpose.
They're piping in crowd noise there too to make it the atmosphere or whatever.
Yeah, so I guess baseball is for sure, and then basketball I saw a couple things with they even have video boards kind of throughout the stadium with old videos of fans from previous years. So it's they're trying to get the vibe. But I don't know. What do you guys? I want to ask the question too. If we get to a point where Michigan has a season, what do we think? Are we pro pumping in crowd noise? How is that going to work?
Honestly, what I'd like to see is what they did with the NFL draft. Let the fans cheer live. I don't even know if that was live or not, but put them on the video boards and let them pump that sound in.
I like that. Some watch parties or something.
Yeah. Might have to put it on a little bit of a delay. Not sure what people are going to be saying, but I think that would be a fun idea for sure.
I think they made people sign off. You had to apply, and then you had to sign off saying, I won't do anything objectionable. I like the crowd noise to that question. I watched a good amount of the National Women's Soccer League in the past month because they came back even earlier. And, you watch it and you don't actually notice from a TV viewer perspective, you don't actually notice the awkwardness if there's the noise. But man, if you're, think about how much, I think we all played, how much grunting or swearing when you get older, or, it's just, it's probably better to have at least some sort of white noise. I think the debate was crowd noise versus music. I think basketball is a good music sport. I don't think baseball. I think they should just have kind of the little fake organ and then cheers and boos when things happen.
Yeah.
The only thing I hope with the crowd noise is that anytime a manager or coach comes out of the dugout to fight with an umpire, turn it down. I want to hear exactly what he's saying at all times.
Yeah,
Mic'd up.
for sure.
I heard they're not allowed to because that's breaking the social distancing protocols. They're not allowed to argue anymore.
Oh, I wonder how that's gonna work.
Well, maybe
Well-
if we pump some crowd noise in, we'll make the big house loud again.
Oh, there we go. There we
I like
go.
the tie-in there. I like that tie-in.
Well, I will say this with just the big house in specific, they're talking about should they do like we said, fake crowd noise, or if there are 10 to 15,000 fans, put mics in the stands and amplify that to make it more organic. But then again, I can just hear somebody in row one, that's saying F Jim Harbaugh, and all of a sudden that is boomed over the entire big house, so it's like, what do you do there? And then on the other hand too is, okay, so if there's fake crowd noise and they have it there and then they bring it down when the play starts, like like they do with the music and the band, then it's all of a sudden dead silent for the whole play. And then you hear that grunting, like you just said, Zach, it's going to be weird no matter what they do.
Yeah, I assume with, that many people in the big house, I can only say it would be similar to like the spring game maybe or something in that realm.
I've been to an open practice where they estimated they had 10,000 fans, and it was still like, everything's going to be weird about this year. Like there's no, I think the sooner fans can let weird happen. We just talked about it, with baseball. They decided their postseason format like an hour before the season started. It's all going to be weird, and it doesn't have to suck. It's going to be obviously not what it normally is, but what it normally is pretty great. I love college football. It's the coolest thing, I'd argue, about the entire country. And so, it won't be at that level, but it can still be. If you have 10,000 fans, I've been at that open practice. It's kind of a unique vibe. It kind of feels like a packed high school game or a, small college game. And, Jim Harbaugh's talked about, he coached at San Diego, the Toreros, and they would get like 4,000 fans at these games. And there's kind of a unique aspect of it. So yeah, I think if they let fans in and if they play, I guess there's two ifs there, but let them make their noise. They'll make their noise. But otherwise, yeah, you probably need some white noise or else. Honestly, like what are super jacked college kids gonna say when they hit each other? They think there's a penalty. It's just you put the hot mic on them too much. Whoever's running the mute button. I've done that before for the radio show. That's that's a
We're gonna get a workout in.
Like the XFL, didn't they have a lot of hot mics and they had to mute out basically half the show?
Yeah.
I kind of loved it though. Like I would as much as that is obviously a problem for a lot of fans, I think they would love to hear what they are saying, even if it is obscenities. I know when I was 18 to 22, I was not saying great things. I'll say that, so
you got grown.
I still don't. Yes. And now I'm very proper. I haven't sworn, since 2012. So we're all good now. Except for last podcast, but that's fine.
Well, that doesn't count.
Relapse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the scheduled program here. So our first down, Michigan recruiting is doing great, but Ohio State is obviously on another level. How big is the difference between having the number 1 recruiting class and the number 8? How will that translate to the field in the next few years? Ro, this sounds like a question that you wrote. I assume that you have something to say on this.
It was really, it was a question towards Zach just because, and I know you're not Sam Webb that's like in the recruiting all the time, but you're around it obviously with working for 247. And just, it really is, we've seen obviously Ohio State's number 1 and they are dominating, right? Like so Ohio State's at number 1 in the 2021 class and Michigan is at number 8. And the difference between Michigan and the number 2 class is closer than it is 2-1. So it's just, that's how bad, or not bad, but that's how big Ohio State's lead is in the recruiting. And I want to know, what is that going to do in the 2021, 2022, 2023 on the field. How big is that difference from number 1 to number 8 when you have 5 stars instead of 1?
Yeah, to me, it just, if I may go first, to me, it just increases the pressure on Michigan to deliver on producing their top players. So they can't really miss on any of these top guys. They have to be guys that they find a way to get them to produce, because you look at the recruiting rankings. Clemson won a national title without a top 10 recruiting class. Now, obviously, they're going to be in that top 5 forever and ever, but they got to that title point with really good development, a great quarterback, and obviously good enough coaching. So it's a big difference. Now we have to see where they finish. I don't know if Michigan will finish 8. I don't know if Ohio State will finish first. This is going to be talking to our recruiting analysts, this is a really weird year for recruiting because a whole bunch of players could decommit, if they're allowed to visit other campuses. I think Ohio State's picked up 6 or 7 out-of-state recruits who haven't even been to campus before, or if they have, it was just to drive by. Like, they haven't actually been in the facilities, met the coaches that much. And other schools are going to be closer to home, or people might make their decisions. So it's kind of a weird year. We'll see where they finish. But if Ohio State finished first and if Michigan finished 8th, from a pure talent perspective, it would kind of be what's been going on the last few years. But I think the big difference is Michigan will have enough players to be a national title contender, but they can't have misses. They can't have 5 stars who transfer to Tennessee after producing like 1.5 sacks. They can't have, top 50 recruits who don't see the field until they're 50 or seniors. They can't have, these 4 stars that don't even make it onto the team. They transfer out before they even see a game at Michigan Stadium. So I think I like Michigan, what their approach has been and what their class has been. Obviously, they have to close. Rocco Spindler's a big name. Donovan Edwards. I think they can finish the top 10 class. Ohio State, this might be a preview to my 90-second hot take, but Michigan might just focus on – Michigan should focus on having the best class it can have. Ohio State, they've averaged like 11.5 wins a year for 20 years. They're in that – Oklahoma in the 70s, Miami in the 80s, Florida State in the 90s. They're in that kind of sphere where it's like, okay, if people are going to commit to them, they're going to commit to them. Michigan just can't miss on these players. If J.J. McCarthy looks like a first-round draft pick by the time he's a sophomore or a junior, Michigan's probably in the mix for everything. They haven't had a first-round draft pick since Jim Harbaugh. If some of these top 100 offensive linemen look like first or second round, because that's what our rankings are based on. 5 stars are supposed to be first round picks. 4 stars are supposed to be other NFL draft picks, basically. And so, if they have 15 players that look like draft picks from this recruiting class, they're going to be in the mix. They'll contend with Ohio State. They'll contend with everybody. But it kind of thins the margin of error, because if your sole goal is beating Ohio State, well, basically you have to beat the nation's best team based on this recruiting ranking. So, yeah, it's a big difference. I think Michigan fans, they probably got to, keep their fingers crossed that Ohio State slips up at one point, because it seems like every quarterback they throw out there is better than the last one. It's really phenomenal. I mean, you think about it went from Braxton Miller to J.T. Barrett, Cardell Jones won him a title, and then they, Dwayne Haskins and Justin Fields. It's like they can't miss. So, and Joe Burrow didn't even make it into that mix. So it's phenomenal what they're doing. But Michigan, I like their class, and the one thing I like is that they haven't screwed the pooch on any recruitment. There's no one that they've been like they miscommunicated with, or they didn't contact them enough. Because that's the big thing, is you just got to make sure that you're recruiting what you can recruit. Michigan, you look at what they've done the last 5 years. A number 8 recruiting class is probably the best you could expect, given where they're located, given where the top prospects are located, given the wins. Because every recruit, they either want to contend for titles, go to the NFL, or both. And so I think 8 is probably what's reasonable for Michigan. If Ohio State is going to have the best recruiting class in history, you just got to suck it up and find a way to develop around that.
Wow, that's a great response.
Did Mike warn you guys that I talk long?
He did not, but between you and Roe, this will be a good long episode here.
Yeah, we could go for hours and hours here because you hit the nail on the head with pretty much everything you said there. If Michigan isn't putting itself up against Ohio State, it's a great program. It's a great recruiting class year after year. So, but the problem is that's the rival. Right. That's the standard, right? So and there's just no way to, and I don't want to say there's no way, but it's so tough to get that, okay, greatest recruiting class in history. Come on. How is that possible to have that be the standard, And so, but that's all that Michigan fans look at, which is understandable. And then I think about, what you said about they can't miss on any of these recruits. And it just seems like over the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, all they've done is miss on big 5-star recruits. I look back at the Rashawn Garys, the Jabril Peppers. How many of these guys, I would say the last one is Charles Woodson, that they're okay, 5-star guy. Spass said this on our podcast as well. 5-star guy, and you actually got everything you could out of him. We didn't get, I hate to say we, but Michigan did not get, 5-star quality out of Rashawn Gary. They did not get 5-star quality out of Jabril Peppers. So that's where I think it's different. And I guess another question then would be, what's the difference? What is Ohio State doing different that makes them develop 5 different quarterbacks in the last 5 years that are all could be the Heisman possibly, or have won a national title? And the one guy that misses out, that had to transfer because he couldn't make it into the starting lineup, went and won a national title and a Heisman and broke the record for touchdowns somewhere else. Where's the difference there?
Yeah, it's a fair question. By the way, I would say Jabril Peppers and Rashawn Gary might not be the people you want to pick on. I'd go after, if you were to say 5 stars that don't produce, maybe a Derek Green and Aubrey Solomon.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And there are, those two, to Peppers and Gary's credit, they did end up as first-round draft picks. So in theory, they didn't. I know what you mean.
I was just going to say, okay, yes, they are first-round talents, but did they have first-round production at Michigan? Jabril Peppers did unbelievable. I actually think he was underrated, but he only ended up with 1 interception in his career. Rashawn Gary, although with injuries, it just seems like the 5 stars at other schools, including Ohio State, they get the production in college and they get the first-round talent. They get the first-round draft pick.
Yeah, they had the Bosas, they had the Chase Young, the Bosa, Chase Young, and Jeff Okuda was a 5-star. I know exactly what you're talking about, and you do have to. If you're a Michigan fan, you probably should be tipping your cap to Ohio State because whatever their hit rate is very high. They don't have everyone has 5 stars that don't turn out to be 5 stars in college, and that's maybe that's on the recruiting analysts, at 247 and other places. Maybe that's on the player. Maybe it's on the coaching. And so that's part of it. A little nugget for you guys from what I've heard is that Jim Harbaugh, he is very hard on 5 stars. His meritocracy that he always preaches, that the best player, the hardest worker is going to play, he really takes that to heart. And so that's how you see someone like Ronnie Bell. There's some success stories with it. Ronnie Bell was Michigan's leading receiver last year. Donovan Peoples-Jones was number 3. Same time, I wonder, was he leveling with Donovan Peoples-Jones in the same way where he's like, how do I get the most out of you versus you got to show it to me? And so I think Michigan's development is really exceptional. I don't mean to, overlook that. Their draft, the amount of draft picks they've produced, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is really exceptional. I want to say 94% of players who have started at least 6 games under Jim Harbaugh have been drafted. That's not a stat every school can, roll out there in their recruiting pitch. But that's a fair point. That how many of their 5 stars have become All-Americans? I think Jabril Peppers has. I think Lamar Woodley has. But in the last 15 years, that might be the end of the list. And so I don't mean that to be, Duncan on Michigan, right? This isn't meant to be that kind of podcast, but it is something to think about is, how do you make sure, because I think Jim Harbaugh has mastered the 3-star to NFL draft pick. He has. I mean, he's produced, I want to say, like 12, 15 of those guys. And I think the 4 stars, as long as they're showing up to work, he can get the most out of them. Think about a Devin Bush or a Chris Wormley or, like a Taco Charlton, some of those other players.
It's almost
though.
It's almost John Beilein-esque a little bit, even though he's not recognized as that because he still does get a few of those high rated, and he's just such a known figure. But it's almost John Beilein-esque, but it hasn't translated to wins as much as it did with Beilein.
Yeah, well, and I don't mean to keep going down the rabbit hole here.
I know. We could do this forever.
Big question is quarterback, right? They haven't had a quarterback drafted at quarterback. Jake Rudock was drafted, but they haven't had a top 100 draft pick at quarterback since Chad Henne. Yeah. They haven't had a first-round draft pick at quarterback. You think about last year's playoff teams. Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. Well, Tua didn't make the playoffs, but they would have if he hadn't gotten hurt. Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence. How many of those guys are going to be drafted in the first round?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone but Hurts, right?
But Hurts, yeah.
So they haven't had a first-round draft pick at quarterback since 1987. To me, that tells you what you need to know, is that in an era of college football where quarterback rules everything, they have not had the game-altering quarterback yet. They've had all right quarterbacks. I don't think Wilton Spade or Shea Patterson ever got due credit for Michigan fans because the losses in the game piled up, right? But, man, no first round. I mean, I tell people from the South that all the time, like that it's been 33 years since they had a first-round draft pick at quarterback. Their minds are blown. They're like, why is this team even being talked about? It seems like it's the same deal, right? So it's an interesting thing. I think that would help. You think about Clemson, they couldn't beat Florida State. It used to be called Clemsoning, right?
Yeah.
They couldn't get over the hump. They couldn't win the big one. And then they finally got Deshaun Watson, and he was a breakthrough. And so that was a game changer for them. LSU, I believe they lost 8 straight to Alabama. Could not win the SEC West. It was too tough of a division. Then they finally get Joe Burrow. So, to your point, Ro, how do you get over the hump? It's probably quarterback. But it also comes down to making sure that you're developing everybody in the way that they need to be developed. What's going to work for a Jordan Glasgow is a lot different than what's going to work for a Cam McGrone. They play the same position. They have a different set of skills. And so that's on Michigan to figure out how do you make the best team with what you have? Because you can't control what Ohio State recruits. You can't control what, Alabama recruits. You can control who you recruit. So we'll see. They feel like they have a better formula. I don't know. I think the jury's still out on that a little bit.
Yeah, so good news, guys. If we want to beat Ohio State, all we need is Deshaun Watson or Joe Burrow.
And Zach, I'm glad you brought up the quarterbacks. Do you think McCaffrey or Milton could be that game-altering QB to get us over that hump?
I wasn't as sold. And when I saw them in practice in December, when I saw them, I think it was the Citrus Bowl practices. Now I should caution, it was like 15 minutes of practice. Milton looked a lot better than McCaffrey in those 15 minutes. McCaffrey actually, he struggled a little bit, but I thought Shea Patterson, whether Michigan fans want to hear this or not, I thought Shea Patterson looked like the clear starter in that particular stretch.
Really? Wow.
So, and we saw McCaffrey. He's had some great moments, against Wisconsin in 2018. I think Notre Dame, I think he held his own, right? But then that game at Maryland, that's the one that kind of sticks in my head where I'm like, it depends on how much he develops. Now, he's got to have had the best quarantine group, right? Because everyone went home and they were working out with whoever they were living with. I mean, he had Christian McCaffrey, Pro Bowler. His dad was a Pro Bowl receiver. I think his older brother played QB receiver at Duke. So, I mean, he I'm sure he had equipment. I'm sure he had a lot going on. But yeah, it's between them, I think their ceilings are better than what Patterson showed. But this is an interesting time because they have to do it themselves. I think now the coaches are able to command, the walkthroughs, the 20-hour work week or 20-hour practice weeks. Got a little Freudian slip there, but I think they can get there because they're both 6'5". McCaffrey's got really good wheels. Milton's got an amazing arm. I think they're both. I think they both see the opportunity that they have. I think they both saw Shea Patterson as they feel like they can be better than Shea Patterson. They do. And now whether they can, I think we got to see it in games a little bit first. But they feel that way, and so I'm not going to say that they can't, because if they're motivated enough and they improve enough, they can. Also, anyone who's watched Joe Milton during warm-ups, hard not to think he can get there, right? I mean, you think about
right.
Watson, he has some traits where you look and you say, man, there's like 4 human beings on the planet that can do that. Now, we'll have to see, if he throws it to the right guy. He threw a beautiful throw. It was intercepted by a Wisconsin player last year. I remember that. And so accuracy, and obviously the intangibles, but they're both athletic. They're both 6'5". They've both been in the system for 3 years. There are worse starting points to have, I guess, is the short way to answer that question.
And I'll ask for your short answer now on the big question that we talk about every week. Are you a Milton guy or are you a McCaffrey guy?
Oh man, I don't know if I'm any guy. I just write about what happens. But if I'm, let me put it this way: if I'm creating a video game team and I'm picking one of the quarterbacks, I'm picking Joe Milton. I am, and maybe I'm selling Dylan McCaffrey short, but I was at Maryland for that game where it just didn't look like he had quite the same touch. And everyone has bad days. I have bad days where my stories are kind of like whatever. So I don't mean to say like he can't be that guy, but Joe Milton, just the way the ball comes out of his hand, the live arm. I mean, I think he was telling us last fall, we asked him last time he threw a baseball, and he was like, yeah, I haven't played baseball in like 6, 7, 8 years. We're like, well, how fast do you think you can throw? He's like 92.
Oh my God.
Okay. Sure. Let's work with that.
So he could be a pitching prospect if this doesn't work out for him as well.
I'll tell you what. I'll say this. I would take the guy with the best arm in the Big Ten and find a way to make sure he's throwing to the right guy and has the right touch. And I would take that, I think, over someone who's the opposite. Some things you can't teach. Arm strength. Ben McDaniels, he might be a great QB coach. I don't think he can teach arm strength that Joe Milton has. He can teach everything else. So I don't know if I'd pick Milton to win, but if I were designing a video game or drafting my team, I think I'd look at Milton first.
Very diplomatic answer there. Yeah.
Love to hear it over here.
These guys are big Milton guys, so that was great for them to hear.
Well, don't even put Kalen in that.
I know, it's just Jack now.
Just me.
Playing this side, playing that side. Well, it sounds like the answer to beating Ohio State is the QB, and our starter remains to be seen. So we will stay tuned, and hopefully we'll have some sort of season. And
maybe
we'll see
until 2022, it could be. So
JJ McCarthy, man.
That's
yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Well, let's move on to our second down topic and change gears here to basketball a little bit. Duncan Robinson has quickly become a star in the NBA. How has Duncan been so successful while Nick Stauskas has struggled? Fun fact, Jack has officially nicknamed Duncan Robinson Slim Diesel.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that to catch on. But this was years ago. We're not even like that wasn't now. That was when he first came to Michigan.
Have you patented that?
I should. I'll look it up right now. I'll try to see if it's taken.
So you'll definitely hear us shouting all about Slimmy D later on.
It's kind of like Christian McCaffrey's nickname, Derry Sanders.
I have not, but I like it.
I like that a lot. No, but I mean, it's just I had this question too because I watched Nick Stauskas at Michigan, and he was lights out. And it wasn't just a spot up shooter; it was moving off the ball, creating his own shot, passing. It was he could get to the rack. And then I watched Duncan Robinson, also a great player, but he not until the very end of his career was he ever even getting to the rack. He was, he was a good 3-point shooter, but it was only when he was wide open. He wasn't really creating his own shot. And then I watch him now play for the Miami Heat, and it's like, oh my God, they're like trying to get him the ball every time down the floor, and he's knocking down any shot possible. So I don't know, Zach, I don't know how much, I'm assuming you've watched a lot of these guys, Is there any analysis? How did Nick Stauskas not pan out in the NBA, and now Duncan Robinson is going around right now as the best shooter in the league?
Right. That's still crazy to hear. I mean, you can't discount what Duncan Robinson is doing, and he's proven people wrong at literally every step of the way. And so I'm not going to say I think it would be unfair to Nick Stauskas to be like, well, why don't you do, what Duncan Robinson's doing is pretty exceptional. By the way, he kind of looks like Rowe, if you think about it. Yeah, having covered Duncan Robinson for 3 years, there's some similarity there.
I see the hair. Hair.
Our shot looks very different. I'll tell you that.
I had a feeling. Didn't need to.
You didn't need to see it to know that.
To make that declaration.
Zach's a little nicer than Spath is.
This is his Superman, right? He takes his glasses off, and all of a sudden he's Duncan Robinson.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But Stauskas, I still wonder if he had ended up with the right coach or the right assistant coach, even just someone who knew what to do with him. Because I think once he got to the Sixers, he was thrown into that tanking culture, and I don't think that was good for him. I mean, I think he lasted longer than a lot of people do in the NBA. I mean, his career was 6 years. I mean, that's don't sell him short. He's not a complete. It's not like he was. There was one of his teammates who decided he liked drugs more than he liked basketball. So his career was shorter. Stauskas did score a good amount of points. I want to say it was in the thousands, and I think he ended up in the wrong culture, and he was just in that tanking culture, and I think that set him back. Whereas Duncan Robinson, I think you ask around enough in the basketball circles, Miami Heat might have the best culture in the NBA. I mean, how does a team that loses Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Chris Bosh still make the playoffs? Still be a good team pretty much every year. And
Juwan Howard is there, right? That's it. It's a big piece of it, right?
Yeah, and he's kind of brought that to Michigan. You can ask the same questions. How does Eli Brooks and Austin Davis? How do they have the seasons that they have? And so, I think that Miami. First of all, the NBA is a little bit different than it was even 5 years ago. Guys like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson have kind of shown, hey, if you can make your threes. I mean, you look at Duncan Robinson's stats. I think he only attempts 1 or 2 2-point shots per game.
It's like Klay Thompson, where Klay Thompson shoots what? I can't remember the stat, but I remember some ridiculous stat a few years ago of Klay Thompson had 3 2-point attempts for the whole year or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a role for that. And if you think about points per possession, well, if you can make 44% of your threes, yeah, keep shooting them. And so that's part of it. I do think Duncan Robinson being 6'8" helps. That's something. It's an unfair thing as someone who is maybe 6 foot on. If I'm really standing up straight on a good day, I can sympathize with this. But the NBA, they're very heightist. You think about Derek Walton. The way he finished his career at Michigan, probably should have been drafted. Instead, he was too short or things like that. And so. Height matters, and Stauskas is 6'6", so it's not like it's this colossal difference, but that can be the difference between having an extra, 0.2 seconds to get your shot off or your release point. So that might be part of it too. I mean, sometimes it's just luck too. I mean, certain guy, I think Jack and Kalen can relate to this in high school baseball. It's like suddenly randomly this one guy that you were striking out with ease a year ago, he just gets on this hot streak and everything just clicks for him. And so that might be part of it too. But I probably the big answer is probably the culture. I mean, Eric Spoelstra, we talk about Michigan, they need to get the most out of all of their guys. I think he's one of those coaches that he will coach players differently or bring in different assistant coaches for different types of players. And so he's found a role, and they're letting him shoot like 11 threes a game. I'm not sure the exact stat, but I'd love to shoot 11 threes a game. I'd probably make one or two. So
yeah, we love Slimmy D.
Yeah.
It's gonna catch on.
A little
Telling you.
bit more than that.
I hope that catches on. But that's the funny thing you said about culture with the Heat. And I know a lot of people when they saw Jimmy Butler leave the Sixers and go to the Heat, they're wondering if he could be kind of like I'll say okay, maybe he'd be like a problem in the locker room. But clearly that hasn't been the case.
Yeah, I'm not an NBA guy, so.
But he was, in the Sixers at the Sixers, he was a very big problem. It seemed like
Timberwolves before that too.
Yep. And then all of a sudden he gets to the Heat, and so that's where I mean, I really never thought about this as much but until you said it, Zach, Juwan Howard's coming here with that culture, which only seems like could be good things for Michigan basketball in the near future here.
Maybe, I hate to project because I would have loved to have seen what it looked like in a tournament setting. I think ask Iowa fans how they feel about their regular seasons versus their postseasons in basketball. Ask, Purdue fans. I mean, I feel like they've won like 4 Big Ten regular season titles, and I don't think they've been to a Final Four. And so in the last 5-7 years. And so, we have to see. We're still seeing, but it does seem, having talked to the players and things like that, it does seem like a really close-knit culture in Michigan basketball. And I think Juwan, I mean, it's almost to the point where as a reporter, we get almost annoyed because he is so for the players. He will never admit that a player's in a slump. He will never say a player had a bad game. He will never say, it's just one of those things where he just, when he goes out into the podium, he basically has the players on his sleeves, and he's like, don't go after these guys. And so, and I don't know. I always compared it to you think about college players, so second semester seniors, where it's like, all right, well, I should say the top tier college players, the ones who are going to the NBA. And it's kind of like, who would you rather have as your teacher? The 60-year-old grandpa type who is very stern, very by the books, making you do stuff like homework and assignments you haven't done since the 6th grade? Or would you rather have the mentor type who knows what you're going through and has all these fun conversations, kind of like a cool uncle vibe? I think Juwan Howard's a lot more of that. And John Beilein, as many accomplishments and as much as he knows about basketball, which is, I mean, he knows more on his pinky than all of us know combined, right? But it's I think there's a really interesting. I want to keep evaluating it. I don't have a full answer yet, but it's an interesting vibe that the way he's able to connect and level with players is it's something. It might pay off because I think his combination of basketball knowledge, knowing how to build a team culture, and then also being able to connect with players. I think a lot of former players who become college head coaches, I don't know if they have that all with them. I think they assume it'll be easier than it is. And I think his time at the Heat, which again, maybe he got lucky, maybe he ended up at the right team that kind of trained him for this. So that was a really long non-answer, but it's something that I keep in mind, when I'm kind of reading between the lines with what these players and coaches say.
Yeah, and I mean, just one more thing on that too is I think Isaiah Livers coming back says exactly what you're saying here. You know, he said it in some of his interviews, especially I saw with Andy Katz. You know, he said Juwan is this guy he's all about us. You know, Isaiah Livers could have very well said, you know what, I have no idea if there's even going to be a college season.
Right.
I'm going to just go somewhere, work out, and try to do my best and prove, work my connections in the NBA world and get into the G League or work myself. He even said it himself. He was late first round and early second round after having injury-riddled season. He could have just been like, you know what, that's it. But it seems like he wants to come back and be mentored by Juwan another year or even 6 months if there's not a season, and then that he'll be more prepared for the NBA. I think that says a ton about Coach Howard and everything he's doing here. You know, whether it translates to wins in March, I have no idea. You have no idea. You know, that's to be seen. But I think he's done pretty much everything right up until this point with what he's had dealt.
Yeah, he reminds me of, I think we've all had a boss that we like especially liked. Like we have bosses that we're fine with. We have bosses that we don't like, but then there's like kind of the middle ground. He's on that end where he's the boss, or for people who maybe haven't had this, but like he's like the professor or the teacher that you're like, I'm looking forward to that class. I'm looking forward to picking his brain, and you can see it when he's practicing. I mean, he's a little bit more subdued than I would have expected for someone who is an NBA player who's a little bit younger, but I think he really connects with the players. I think he does. And I think he goes out of his way to do that. His open door policy, I know there's been a few stories written about that where, it's often literally open, but it's obviously a figurative open door policy, but he wants to be a mentor. And I think that's the big thing. That was my big question when he came from the NBA is he going to want to do these extra mile things? You know, what's he going to be like on a Tuesday night when they lose a game in I guess these other college towns are other college towns, but like it's a very depressing chartered flight home from like a Champaign or from a state college or from, wherever the Iowa City, it's like 10 degrees outside. And it's like, is he going to want to be there for the kids, or is he going to be thinking about how he could have still been an assistant coach in Miami, or he could be a head coach on the private jets bouncing all over the nation's biggest cities? And I think he embraced the mentorship opportunity. And so that's big in basketball. In football, there's a lot of other things, with all the game plan, you only play 12 games. So a lot of it's more the off season for head coach. But for basketball, a lot of it is, putting the hand on the player's shoulder and finding a way to make, say Isaiah Livers is hurt after just returning from being hurt. How does he respond? And so far, I can't recall a thing that, in that mentorship capacity that he hasn't done right. Whether Livers, there's probably more to the decision, but you can tell he wants to play for Juwan Howard, and that's notable.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of it is about, knowing your player and conveying that message. Okay, well, we're going to transition into our third down topic. Michigan State paused workouts after a staff member tested positive for COVID on Wednesday night. If this is the protocol for teams moving forward, how can there possibly be a 2020 football season? Who wrote this question? We are having a 2020 season.
I'm sorry. Again, I wrote the question, but it's just, to me, obviously I want a 2020 football season. And last week's podcast, I said I'm single-handedly willing us to a 2020 football season. I'm preparing as I would normally. I'm getting my tailgate stuff ready in the middle of July like a psycho. I'm watching old film of, last year's games and getting myself ready. But it's just like, and this is not a knock on Michigan State. I don't think it's right or wrong what they did here by pausing voluntary workouts because a staff member tested positive. But my point is, if that's the case, so say that happens and that's the protocol for every other school. If one person tests positive, that they're shutting everything down. how can there possibly be a 2020 season? It's going to happen. You know, we talked about it with Spath. I've heard him on the radio. I've heard you on the radio, Zach. It's like, it's if that's the protocol, then there's no way that nobody's going to test positive in the next 4 months. So if that's what's going to happen, I just don't see it happening.
So real quick, I guess I'd want to know more about the Michigan State situation. I know being a staff member, that's a little different than a player just because you don't know. I don't know who the staff member was. I don't know their age. You know, I don't know how severe it was or how involved they were with the players. I mean, this could be a guy they might have shut it down because it's like the head strength and conditioning coach. Forgive me if we know who it is and I just haven't read it. But, you know, it could be someone who interacts with the players like every single player every day. And they're like, okay, well, without him, this whole thing's gotta be tabled. So it might be that. It might be a precaution. I know Michigan State, they were under 1% in terms of positivity rate with their student athletes this summer. So they would be what I would say in that good position where, you know, they didn't have, because there's been teams that have had 7, 8, 9 players on the football team test positive. And so I think Michigan State, Michigan, Penn State, Notre Dame are some of the bigger schools in the area that have done really well and haven't had many players test positive. So your point stands. If they have to shut it down when a staff member tests positive, you start to wonder. But I also wonder, would Michigan State have shut it down if they played next week? And so, or is this a hyper proactive? Let's make sure, you know, we're. But you also wonder, okay, does it matter? Should they be treating it differently in July than they do in September? I would argue morally, no.
Or, you know, my other question too is, did they really shut it down, or is that like a PR play? You know, I don't want to put this on Michigan State because I think it could be anybody, but I've always talked about, you know, I've talked with people in the Michigan athletic department and just friends in general. You know what? If we're in week 9 of this football season and Justin Fields comes in and he's asymptomatic and he tests positive for COVID, I can promise you that test is getting buried. You know what? And that's not an Ohio State thing. That's just like these guys mean that much to these programs, you know, and if he's asymptomatic, it means millions of dollars. So it's those types of things too. Is like, okay, are they doing this as a PR thing? Are they doing it for real? It's everything's just so unknown. You know, how do we know as fans? And I think it's in the athletic departments, it's in the coaching staffs. They have no idea what's going to happen in the next week and a half with a schedule, if football is going to happen, how they should be going about it. This is all brand new territory for them. So what do they do? And the obvious answer for Michigan State here to be precautious about their players and everything else is say, let's shut it down. So I don't blame them one bit. It's just I don't see how, you know, I said it 10 times now, I feel like, but I don't see how that plays out to where we can play a full season of football.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and that's kind of what I was saying before. Is it's going to be a weird season. You are going to have starting quarterbacks who are out with, even though they feel fine, but like there's just they have to sit out, and that's the NCAA's rules. And so, yeah, it might at the end of the day it might not happen. They might cancel it early. They might throw an asterisk on it at the end of the day. You know, whoever wins the title is just whoever avoided COVID the most. So there's a lot of potential things here. The only thing that I would say for fans who are wondering, you know, to your point, you know, who are wondering, okay, how is this possible? Is it is precautions like this. If it, you know, maybe it's not shutting down practice, but are you making sure that people who test positive and people who are around the people who tested positive, are you making sure they're staying away? Because that's really what it's going to be about. Because a lot of schools have shown, and I'd say Michigan is one of them, that when they're in this bubble, they can avoid COVID-19. I think MLS had 1,200 tests last week and none were positive. I want to say, you know, MLB and NBA have been relatively pretty low positivity rates. So it's I'm not going to make any promises. I'm not going to sit here and, preach that they should have it or that they could. I think, there's a lot of interesting points have been raised that if schools don't feel comfortable having their teachers in school, why on earth are they putting the unpaid college football player or the amateur athlete out there, for battle? And the answer might be because they want to, because they are giving players an option to sit out. But man, I don't know. There's a lot of I don't knows that come with the COVID related questions, but
it's uncharted territory.
Yeah, in these unprecedented times, Drake.
Right, we've heard that 1,000 times. And I as a Michigan fan, I've been a Michigan fan my entire life, and I know how things go for Michigan. And you said something about having an asterisk next to the season. This would be the year that Michigan goes 10-0 and wins a national title, and then everyone still can say Jim Harbaugh didn't actually win it. It wasn't a real title. Like, that's just how things would happen for Michigan fans. It's weird how everything happens. It seems like nothing can go our way. That's just like how it goes.
Yeah. Well, as long as you're aware of the rules, then.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, we're very self-aware here. Does anybody have any cleanup on that topic? No, I think we touched on it pretty well. We hope there's a season, but we all understand the realities of COVID. Our fourth down topic here. Our partner, Michael Spath, said on Inside the Huddle yesterday that TV partners want a full 12-game conference schedule. Let's just say that happens. What 3 teams should Michigan add?
Well, if you're getting to a 12-game, it's all conference, just Big Ten?
All conference, yeah.
Okay, so there's only going to be one team that you don't play, right? So that would, logically speaking, I would think that would be Nebraska. They're not a divisional opponent. There isn't a ton of history, and I wonder. I defer to a health expert on this, but are the bus rides safer than the flights, even if they're chartered? My thought would be yes, because you can open a window and you can kind of control who's driving. You don't have as much crew. It's not as much foreign elements. But my thought would be maybe you decide to drive places, and you can drive to Northwestern. So that's one. You can drive to Illinois. It's kind of a lame drive, but it's 5.5 hours. And then you can drive to Iowa City. If you're going quick, it's 6 hours. I guess they all stink, right? Because rural Illinois is not my favorite place to drive through. But I've done all those drives day in, day out, and so I guess those would be the 3 that stand out to me. That's pretty much naming. Again, suddenly they're playing 12 of the 13 other opponents. But I'm really curious to see, because I can imagine where the TV execs want 12 games, but as we were just discussing, I mean, there's a lot of factors here, and it's not, Ann Arbor is pretty good about COVID from what I can tell. I think there were only 4 new hospitalizations in the last week. The positivity rate's well below, it's kind of in that 1 to 3% territory. So they would be one of those cities that would be classified as like, okay, they can have a season, because those are the positivity rate and the hospitalization rate are 2 factors that the NCAA actually outlined as these are reasons to cancel the season. So Ann Arbor might be good. I don't know what's going on in Evanston, Illinois, or in Minneapolis, Minnesota, or in Madison, Wisconsin. And so it might, 12 games is awfully ambitious. I don't know about what you guys think, but, I get wanting more money. More money's more money. It's never not more money. But, man, that is counting on everything clicking perfectly. I like the 10-game in 14 weeks format, because if, say, Ohio State loses Justin Fields and Trey Sermon and a couple offensive linemen for a week, maybe they can just play the next week, and they can, you have those bye weeks to kind of help with the isolation. Now it's never going to be perfect, and there's probably going to be a lot of teams that cry foul or unfair, but at least you have those weeks to do it. If you're trying to get 12 games in 13 or 14 weeks, what happened? That's, I feel like I'm going to sound like Roe here, but like, I just don't see how it works out. It just doesn't, I don't see the end game.
Again, like, this is not, we want it to happen, obviously, but it's just like, it just doesn't, trust me, we're hurt by this more than anybody else. Like, we want a football season. You want a football season for your job. We want it for our podcast that we don't make any money off of. We just like to talk football. Like, it's all that. And I'll actually pass this to Jack a little bit too, here too, because we talked last podcast about, the schedule and where would you rather play people? Where would Michigan rather play other teams? And, as far as money goes, maybe it's better to play those more high-tier teams early in the season, Jack, and you said it last week, so go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've brought it up multiple times, and I've brought it up for different reasons, but as far as this case goes, I mean, every year we want to play Ohio State. Just because there's always a hope that this could be the year that we could beat them. More often than not, it's happen. But those are the games we want to play. We want to see us play Ohio State. We want to see us play Michigan State. Blue Bloods like Wisconsin, Penn State, Minnesota. I mean, those are really the big games we want to play. So, I mean, I feel like as far as adding games in, I'm with you, Zach. Iowa, Northwestern, Illinois, those would be like the safe ones as far as travel, and leave Nebraska out just because it's a little bit farther across the country. But even reorganizing the schedule, put Michigan State, Ohio State, and Penn State in the first month. I mean, make sure you get those big moneymaker games as far as like broadcasting and, whatever it is. At the beginning of the schedule. Division titles. I mean, get them at the beginning of the schedule where it really makes that difference, and they have that there. I mean, honestly, if we could add 3 more games of Ohio State, that gives us even better chance we'll beat them sometime. So I'm all for that as well.
Yeah, what other teams are there besides Illinois, Northwestern that are within 5 hours? Iowa.
Nebraska would be the outlier.
Okay.
But even Maryland's a far game. I mean, that's
so.
Penn State's a 9-hour drive. I've done it 3 times in my life. It's not fun.
Never fun. Nope.
No.
It can be pretty, but the drive home is never fun. So
we've lost every single time I've been there. So the drive home, hungover Sunday morning, drive home after getting beat 42-13, not my favorite drive.
Oof. Hey, don't remember the game, so joke's on you.
Yeah, good thing I blacked out that day.
Blacked out for the whiteout. Is that what they call it?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's my new smart move anytime we go to Penn State.
Honestly, I've never been to a Penn State whiteout game. Have you guys had a chance, Zach and Ro?
I've been. I think it's the best atmosphere that I've covered or that I've been in.
Wow.
Hands down, I've been to the Shoe in Columbus. I've been to quite a few Big Ten games, never really outside of that. It is unreal. I tell you what, if we could take Michigan Stadium and make it into that would be heaven on earth for me. It truly would. I mean, it's like, I don't know what it is. I know it's a night game. I don't know what they do. They must like hand a beer to everyone coming in. Like it's unbelievable. And we've been on the losing end of every game I've been to there, in a bad way, actually. I've been to some blowouts, but it's still, I'm just in awe of what they do. It's literally like Michigan has tried to do a ton of maze outs, and it doesn't really work. Penn State, for some reason, the whiteout is a true whiteout, and it is just like, there's nothing that compares to that in my mind.
So here's a way I would describe it to Michigan fans. You know how like pumped up the stadium is for like Mr. Brightside?
Yeah.
Nowadays, the new tradition, and how like you can turn the music off and they'll just keep singing for another minute and a half. So a Penn State whiteout, because the color is relevant. I mean, every part of it is that every human being owns a white shirt, but part of it, they do all wear white, and that is helpful. But it's the energy and the tone. The way Michigan Stadium responds to Mr. Brightside, that is a Penn State whiteout to every single song. And even like the little first down jingle, they play like the Zombie Nation. That one.
Yep.
It's like that for like 4 straight hours. And their aluminum stands probably help echo it, but it is, I don't know. Have you ever been like so inspired by something that it scares you a little bit? That's what a Penn State whiteout is. And so the closest thing I've come, Purdue basketball is quietly a great atmosphere. Was lucky enough to go to the Final Four in 2018. That's cool in a different way because there's like 20,000 fans of each school that are there. But it's the Penn State whiteout is something to behold. It's got to be like the fan base just deciding, like, because the students will always show up for every school. I think Michigan students do a really nice job. It's more the 50-yard line seat.
I think, honestly, what I think it is it's a bunch of people. Happy Valley is on a cliff that is in the middle of nowhere. So I think the people that go to Penn State games they have nothing else to do but drink. And so, Ann Arbor maybe is too close to Detroit or Grand Rapids.
Something else you do in Ann Arbor on a football Saturday other than drink.
Well, that's true too. Maybe we just like to drink.
But even the downtown is so close. Like there's so much, like tailgates are right there, and people are just, I don't know. I know, Zach, you said you feel like the students do a great job. I'm not saying they don't, but the stadium is so big, and it always looks like that student section is only 75-80% full. I think we should make it smaller if they're not going to fill it up.
Well, they fill it up. They just don't fill it up until an hour later.
Yeah.
2 more shots later, right?
Okay, Jack. Okay, so you're going to fill it up with what? More of the 60-year-old people that are going to fill in there and be even quieter than the students?
Hey, at least them telling people to sit down will be louder than empty seats.
Okay, Grandpa.
Yeah, I heard that's a really...
It's for the aesthetic. It'll look better on TV that way.
I hear that's actually a really big problem at Wisconsin, that the student section doesn't show up till like the second half.
Oh my gosh, I've seen it. Yeah, like for Michigan, Wisconsin, game day was there, and they didn't show up until like
isn't it like an 11 a.m. Central kickoff though?
Yes,
it can be. That's part of it. Yeah, I mean,
they're still at the bar. Trust me. They show up in the third quarter for jump around, though, right?
Oh,
yeah. That was pretty cool. I don't think it was as cool as a Penn State whiteout, but jump around. I've always wanted to see it. Maybe I had the expectations too high in my head, but I mean, it's part of what college football needs to do, and I'm curious how this year impacts it. Is how do you make sure fans want to be at the games? Because I'm telling you, if I were a fan, I'd maybe consider going to 1 game or 2 games. But when you can sit, 75-inch TVs have never been so affordable. You can flip your channels. You can order your buffalo wings. You don't have to get up. Yeah, the beer is like, well, I don't even know. Michigan Stadium doesn't sell beer, right?
Right,
so,
exactly.
They should.
It's just one of those things. It's like you might be happier at your price, especially if you're not like a diehard football person. Like if you're like a casual fan, which I mean, most people aren't like us, spending all of our waking moments thinking about football. And so, yeah, you'd rather go where you can go to the bathroom. You don't pay. I mean, think about how much a ticket costs. How much beer and pizza and chicken wings could you buy with that money? I'm doing the calculations in my head. It's a lot.
It's almost crazy when you think about what all the things you just said, that they can get 110,000 people to come to the games every week.
I'm telling you, it's part of what I love about college football, that like some of it just goes beyond reason, but people show up and they care. Might argue they care too much. I say they care in a very admirable amount.
Absolutely. And I'll say it too. So my girlfriend is the director of game presentation at Michigan Athletics. And it's like, we talk about it all the time. What can we do to get people up to, she came with me to Penn State multiple times. And it's like, how can we get that at Michigan Stadium? And we just haven't been able to figure it out. Like if anybody can figure that out, that is a literal $1 billion question. Like somebody will pay you so much money to figure that out at Michigan. But it just, I don't know. It's just the culture.
Bro, I've been solving this question over the course of the entire summer. $1 billion ideas is what I produce every week.
we got the Make the Big House Loud Again series going, and Kalen is the leader. He's the conductor of the train.
Numero uno.
That could work. I mean, I don't know about you guys. Last year in 2018, when Michigan was thumping Wisconsin and thumping Penn State, I feel like that was pretty good. Like the volume, the atmosphere. You know, when they played Jump Around or they played Zombie Nation or they, you know, I look down. Now I'm very up high and the windows aren't, you know, they prop them open, but I don't quite get a full sense of the atmosphere. But I was kind of looking down like, okay, this looks like a capital F football crowd. You know, this looks like an SEC crowd, an Ohio State type of crowd. So part of it might be the team's got to be better, right? But I think if you think about historically, for so long, Michigan games were presented as this family affair. That was like Don Cannon's big pitch was, you know, don't just go because you like football, go because, you know, it's the family fun thing to do. And so there's a lot of people who still abide by that tradition. And I mean, I don't know. I wonder as like people maybe our age, as, you know, millennials or 20-somethings or 30-somethings become the season ticket holders and the preferred seat donors and things like that. Does it change? I don't know. But when Michigan does well, I do think the volume follows just a little bit. Like imagine if they beat Ohio State at home.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
This is me like Leo DiCaprio in Wolf of Wall Street. Like that's my gift. I just imagine like I literally like I go to bed praying every night for the Seven Nation Army after Michigan beats Ohio State, and they're just like, oh my God, just going nuts.
And that's the big thing. I feel like the best crowd we'll get for Michigan versus Ohio State is the game at home after we beat them the first time. Because then maybe all the Ohio State fans won't travel to that one. Because that's what they do. They travel to the game, and I may be drastically off here, but it seems like it's about 50% Ohio State, 50% Michigan.
It's pretty close.
I don't think you're off.
I mean,
they get the like OHIO going, and it's
loud.
And it's
yeah. I don't want us to, you know, this is getting pretty long-winded off the rails. So,
bro, shut up.
It's my fault.
It's okay. No, we're getting off the rails here. So let's try to move into our 0 to 90 takes. Zach, I don't know if we told you about 0 to 90. You basically have 30 seconds to do any hot take, pitch, whatever you want to say. You got 30 seconds to say it. So we'll let you see how it's done. And Ro, we'll let you go first if that's okay.
Yeah, I can go first.
All right. Ro, your 0 to 90 starts now.
All right. So by the time basketball season rolls around, everyone is going to be so amped up for sports that they're going to need to expand Chrysler Stadium. So what they're going to do is basically a big chill inside of Michigan Stadium, but for a basketball game. And they're going to say, all right, we're putting the basketball court in the middle of Michigan Stadium, and they're playing basketball in Michigan Stadium, maybe in December, maybe January.
30 seconds.
Okay. Well, you have some Timberlands on and like big puffy coat trying to hoop out there in 10-degree weather.
I mean, I do it. I do it for the Ohio State game. Why can't our athletes do it? They're the best athletes in the world. Come on.
I've got a similar take to what you just put out.
All right, Jack. Your 0 to 90 starts now.
All right. There won't be fans in the stadium, but tailgating will be better than ever. Everybody is craving sports. They're craving interaction. They're craving just anything that involves, you know, getting ready for a game and all of that hype. And if people are allowed to tailgate because people will do it at their homes or do it wherever. It's going to be a great thing to witness.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm tailgating right now. Cheers.
This is like heavy breathing right here. That gets me going. I'll tell you what, that gets me going real good.
Oh, gosh.
All the blood rushed from Roe's head too. I'm not going to say where, but he got very excited with that take.
I'm gonna be outside tomorrow building my whole bar for the tailgate.
Oh gosh. All right, Zach, you've seen how it's done. Are you ready for your 0 to 90?
Okay, so I thought I had 90 seconds. I don't have 90.
I did a
It's
bad
only
job
30.
explaining that. It is only 30 seconds.
You know, we can give him 90 seconds.
He's a guest.
No.
He's a guest. Yeah, come on. We'll
All right. Well, I don't
No
know if I've ever made
exceptions.
a point in 30
Don't cut him
seconds
off.
before.
He's good.
All right, let's do this because I was teasing it earlier. Michigan fans will not be happy ever until they stop comparing themselves to Ohio State. I mean, you look at the run that they're on. I think it's like 8 straight years they've been a top 6 team. Michigan's never done that. The last time they were close, the telephone wasn't invented. And so they are just for your own sanity. Think about the one guy Michigan has a statue for. He went 10-9-1 against Ohio State. Like, talk about the best ever. Bo Schembechler, at least in the modern era of Michigan football. It's just an unfair comparison. They've won 11.5 games a year for 20 years. Michigan's kind of sitting in that 8.5 zone. Obviously, Michigan should try to get there, but if you want to be happy and you're a Michigan fan, you got to start comparing yourself to Penn State. You got to start comparing yourself to Notre Dame, and probably appreciate the fact that you have pretty much taken over the Michigan State rivalry. And so I get a lot of people who tweet at me when players say this or that. Who cares? Beat Ohio State. Not a way to go through life. If you do well in an IM basketball game and you come home and you're excited about it and someone says, who cares? Focus on the TPS report due Monday. That guy's not going to be your friend for very long, right? so I get the rivalry. I'm not dismissing it. But if you are a Michigan fan, you're like, how do I be happy? Celebrate all victories, right? And appreciate that while you're not Ohio State, you're not Rutgers, you're not Maryland, you're not some of these other schools. And so
we're not the Spartans either. You know what? You said
Thank
it.
God.
And I'm gonna take the high road here. We're leaving the Ohio State out, but our rival, the Spartans, they're in bad shape, and we're gonna take the victory there.
There you go. I see it all the time. I don't know about you guys. Every time something happens to Michigan, it's like, who cares? Just beat Ohio State. It just, I don't know. Maybe
I just beat Ohio State thing. Literally, that gives me like aneurysms. Honestly, it just. But I come from the west side of Michigan. I come from nearly all Michigan State fans are my friends. And you know what? We're dominating the football rivalry after, they had their run for sure, but it's over. They won 8 out of 10. I think Michigan might win 10 out of 10, honestly, for the next 10 years. And the only problem is basketball, because they're still pretty good in basketball, and Tom Izzo is doing a pretty good job. We'll cut this out because I don't want to get any problems.
I'll take that 10-0 action, by the way.
I like that. I mean,
What
Zach,
would
what we
you
might
say?
have to
Okay.
do is take
go ahead.
off Ohio State like we did with Notre Dame.
Take him out of the schedule for 12
Yeah,
years.
resume it back in 2034.
That's
Give us
perfect.
some time. Give us some time to catch up, and then we'll go back up there.
I mean, all right, since 2000, they lead the nation in wins, NFL draft picks. I believe they lead the nation in conference titles. Like, I get where Michigan wants to be at that level.
They
But it's
don't.
a little
No,
different
I
than
don't
the
think
Ohio
I don't
State
think the
of old.
national titles part.
No, sorry, conference titles. Excuse
Sorry,
me.
yeah.
Yeah, they don't win in national titles. Alabama does. But
But I really don't like you coming at us with stats here to like actual facts. We don't like those on this podcast, so you can leave those at home.
I didn't get that in the memo.
All right, somebody put a timer on me. Let me do my
All right,
0 to
Keelan,
90.
All right,
got
here
it.
we go.
All right, Keelan. Your 0 to 90 starts now.
Okay, in the unlikely event that we don't have a football season, I suggest that we make a custom version of Madden or updated NCAA, and we make it playable with 11 guys versus 11 guys. We recreate every team, and then every starter on every team gets an opportunity to play against every starter on the other team. So we've just virtualized NCAA football. We can stream it on Twitch/YouTube/ whatever the kids are watching.
You're cut off. There we go. Interesting. Sounds like a lot of work.
I liked it.
Dude, it's just Madden 11v11. Updated rosters.
So you're saying like Aiden Hutchinson can play as himself,
Yep.
and then dominate, and then okay, all right, I like that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Zach, are you a gamer?
I don't know. I like video games. I don't play nearly enough to be a gamer. So
I don't think any of us are. So I
No.
think we're all in the same boat. We're like casual, love to play, every once in a while, but not anything serious.
Because
I like
that
to
way,
play.
at least we
Good.
could watch a season, right? And the players would still get to participate in a season, whether they enjoy it or not. Man, I could still drink and gamble.
I mean, yeah, I'm with that, or us recreating a season and just tailgating while one of us plays. It's
yeah.
any reason to give myself the opportunity to tailgate and drink, I'm all in.
At this point, we will tailgate literally anything. Like if you guys, if there is, I don't know, horse
I saw a
racing.
little league team playing at Vets Park the other day. You can go tailgate them.
I was
Hell
already
yeah, let's
I was there.
tailgate them. Do you think there's a line that we can bet on too? I want like over under Tommy at first base gets 1.5 hits.
Right.
Like, I'll bet on
Okay.
that. I swear to God, I'll do it
All
all.
right. We're off in the weeds now. Let's go ahead and wrap this episode up, right? Thank you for listening to Blue by 90. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Blue by 90. You can find us on YouTube at Blue by 90 Podcast. Zach, if you have anything you want to plug.
No, just writing away over at 247sports. Love the work that myself and my colleagues have done. Also inside the Huddle, starting to get back into things a little bit. We're not in studio yet, and I'm only on once or twice a week at this point, but check it out. It's a fun show. I know Ro got his debut there the other day, right?
Yeah, these guys are next though. They're coming on. So you better watch yourself because we might be coming for your spot. You never know.
This is what you deal with when you talk to Rose, Zach. Just to give you a heads up. So.
You want to share your Twitter at all, or you want to keep that under wraps?
_Zach Shaw. Yeah, there's